Okay, well, welcome everyone for coming this lovely Friday afternoon. We are excited that you are all here joining us to learn about innovative technologies in the classroom. Today, our speaker is Jessica Greil-Burkhart. She is an assistant teaching professor at the College of Social Work at FSU. And primarily, she teaches the clinical courses for the MSW students, both online and on the main campus. She also serves as a field advisor for the undergraduate and graduate internships. We have asked her to be here today because the past summer and through this fall semester, Jessica has been a FICWA instructor in residence. And what that means is that she has been providing her insight, her expertise to our faculty who are building out the academic innovation programming. So working closely with Dr. Samples, Dr. Iski to build out assets that will be used throughout the academic innovation program. And we specifically asked Jessica to present this webinar because of her expertise in using technology in the classroom. So by seeing some of the names on this attendee list, I know you all understand the value and the importance of technology. And so I hope as you go through this presentation today, you are able to see what's out there, what type of technologies are being used right now, and how they can benefit your students in your classrooms. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jessica and enjoy the presentation, everyone.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that way you can see slides throughout. So here we go. All right. Well, again, thank you for being here today. I'm Jessica Greil-Burkhart, as Elizabeth shared, and I'm really glad that you have joined us for this webinar in innovative technology in social work and child welfare education. My hope is that you leave not only with new ideas, but also with practical tools that you can take back to your own classroom and try out. So Elizabeth did a great introduction of me, just a little bit more about me. As stated, I'm an assistant teaching professor and a field education advisor in the College of Social Work. I also serve in an instructor in residence role with FICWA. And additionally, I'm a qualified supervisor for social workers seeking licensure in both Florida and Georgia. I'm a 3-time graduate from Florida State. I received my bachelor's in psychology and sociology, my master's of social work, and then more recently, a master's in curriculum and instruction. So I'm also an LCSW in both Florida and Georgia, and I have various certifications and trainings in different therapy modalities and teaching approaches. And what I found most exciting is how I've been able to bring my clinical work, my teaching experience, and my educational training together. And technology has really supported that. So that's really what we're focusing on today. So here's what we'll cover. We'll start by understanding the importance of innovative technology in higher education, especially for adult learners and specifically for child welfare practice and social work education. Then we'll explore several tech tools, their functions, and specific ways I've used them in my classroom and also how they could be used in social work and child welfare education. And then we'll also talk about implementation, what's worked, what to consider, and how to get support. So to get started, what is innovative technology in higher education? And so when we talk about innovative technology, we mean using digital tools and strategies that make learning more interactive, more accessible, and more effective. So these approaches really move beyond the traditional lectures and even the traditional discussion boards by boosting engagement and improving outcomes. Examples include virtual and augmented reality for really immersive experiences, artificial intelligence platforms that offer real-time support, and then mobile technologies, apps, and platforms that make learning possible anywhere while still creating interactive opportunities for students. And that last one is what we're really going to be looking at today, the mobile and remote learning technologies, apps, and platforms. So why is this important? Innovative technology expands access by removing barriers for some students like geography or scheduling or just other life responsibilities, which is really crucial for non-traditional learners, working professionals, and students in rural or underserved areas. It also supports personalized learning by adapting to different styles, needs, and pacing. It boosts engagement and motivation as well. So when students interact with content, apply concepts, and collaborate with peers, they strengthen critical thinking and authentic skills, and they become less reliant on AI to complete tasks for them, which I know has been an emerging concern in education. And in fields like social work and child welfare, where digital tools are already a part of practice, integrating them into the classroom bridges learning with real-world application. When used thoughtfully, technology enhances outcomes and promotes equity by offering multiple ways to access and demonstrate knowledge. And so we've discussed how technology expands access and engagement, but it's equally important to connect this to adult learning. And research shows adults are most motivated when content is relevant to their personal and professional lives, when they have that flexibility and autonomy, and when they can apply learning to real-world contexts. And technology supports these needs by enabling what we call just-in-time learning, kind of on the go, they can access it at any time, and also experiential and collaborative learning. So technology really helps adults reflect, think critically, and strengthen professional skills in meaningful and lasting ways. And then taking this even further, why is innovative technology especially important in social work education? We know as social workers and other helping professionals, social work has always been experiential and about learning by doing. It's not just understanding the concepts, but it's practicing skills, making ethical decisions, and engaging with people and systems in the real world. And so technology bridges that gap between class and field by offering safe spaces to practice, reflect, and build confidence before meeting clients. Technology also aligns directly with the NASW Code of Ethics. Innovative technology promotes competence by allowing students to actively develop and refine their skills. And it advances service and social justice by expanding access through, things like captioning, mobile learning, and flexible formats. It supports the dignity and worth by meeting diverse learning needs. And collaborative platforms strengthen human relationships through respectful peer learning. And then finally, it reinforces integrity and lifelong learning by preparing students to ethically use and adapt tools as social work practice continues to evolve. It's also important to note that the 2026 Council of Social Work Education, the CSWE, their strategic plan emphasizes the growing role of technology in social work education. So goal 1 in their plan focuses on preparing the profession for opportunities and challenges of artificial intelligence. Objectives include increasing knowledge about AI, strengthening social work representation in interdisciplinary tech initiatives, and expanding partnership and funding to support technology integration in education and practice. And then taking this one step further, why is innovative technology specifically important for child welfare education and practice? Again, so many on this call know that child welfare, the field is really safety critical. It's emotionally demanding, and it's guided by ethics, trauma-informed care, and family-centered practice. And so it really requires strong assessment, documentation, and decision-making skills, all within systems shaped by policy, equity, and access to resources. And technology strengthens practice by expanding that access and flexibility for training. It promotes equity, and it reduces costs. It builds worker confidence and competence. It enhances nuanced decision-making, and it increases fidelity to evidence-based practice. It also eases supervisory burden, and it supports retention by reducing burnout, which ultimately leads to a stronger, more prepared workforce. One thing that is really great about technology in general is that it really helps to support what we call microlearning, which breaks content into small, manageable pieces, as opposed to kind of the traditional, hour to 3 hour lectures or courses or long readings. And so this approach really respects adults' time and cognitive load, and it allows learners to revisit skills or concepts exactly when they need them to. By making learning more flexible and brain-friendly, technology enhances retention, promotes self-direction, and creates opportunities for that just-in-time learning and application, and even that peer-to-peer learning. So, instructional technology tools can be grouped into 5 main categories. We have video-based platforms, applied learning tools, collaboration tools, engagement and reflection tools, and then instructional delivery platforms. And as you can see, many tools have overlap and serve different, meet different categories. Each of these different categories plays a different role in supporting adult learning, and we'll take a look at each of these ones now. So before we start looking at the specific ones, I also just want to note that I am not an expert in any of these tools. I've learned a lot about their use through trial and error, as well as a lot of support from FSU Office of Digital Learning, FSU ODL. And over time, I've become more comfortable using them. So I really do encourage everyone to reach out to, if you're with FSU, reach out to FSU ODL or with your institution or agency's support team. As well as just, doing some research and practice on your own. So the goal of this presentation isn't to make you an expert in the tools, but rather introduce you to tools and show how they could be applied in our field. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is one that is likely familiar to many of you, Kaltura, which it's built into Canvas and other learning management systems. And a lot of us, I think, often use Kaltura to record lectures or videos, but it offers a lot more that's really, it wasn't known to me. I know it's, they have kind of hidden features. So with Kaltura, you can create demonstrations or presentations, but you can also add interactive features to those videos, like quizzes, reflection prompts, hotspots, and branching scenarios. And these features really help transform videos from a passive tool into an active learning experience that keeps students engaged and provides immediate feedback within the course. So I'm going to show on the next few slides some examples of how I've used them in my different courses. You'll note that some of the slides, a video on the screen is automatically going to play as I speak, just to show some of the features. But then there will be some other videos that I'll stop and play to highlight some of the more advanced features. So Kaltura works especially well for that microlearning that I mentioned before. So as you can see on my screen, this is one of my online courses where instead of posting a long 60-minute lecture, I break content into micro lectures that students can easily revisit and that work well for teaching specific skills and content or concepts. So you can see I've kind of broken it down into general practice, and that's about a 3-minute video. Rules of the social worker is about a 7-minute video. And students often share that this format really supports their attention span, flexibility, and just-in-time learning while they're balancing classes, field, work, personal life. Kaltura makes it really easy to edit and trim long recordings into shorter clips. So I often will record, my 60-minute lecture or however long it is, but then Kaltura, I'm able to go in and put markers and trim and make copies of videos so that way they are broken down into these shorter videos. It is also really easy to just record those short clips from the start. Another powerful Kaltura feature is the that ability to embed quizzes directly into videos. And so in this example you're about to see, this is for one of my social work practice classes where they're learning the foundational skills of active listening, of empathy, rapport, and really just building that therapeutic alliance. And so this activity is one of my students' favorites. They watch a first therapy session, and during the video, it pauses to ask multiple choice questions about how the therapist should respond to the client. And after they select their answer, they're then able to see what the therapist says, and then they get feedback that pops up on the screen explaining why it's the most appropriate. And so this activity really transforms videos from passive viewing to active learning while reinforcing key concepts and promoting critical thinking right within the video. So I'm going to play a little bit of it now, and I hope I have shared my sound, but please let me know if I have not.
Hi. So what brings you in today? Well, the semester just ended, and I'm feeling really afraid of like how I did all throughout, and I'm feeling like I could have done a lot better. So I'm kind of struggling with feeling, like I performed well, and maybe I might fail, or just a lot of different thoughts in regards to how I did the semester.
So, and this looks exactly as the student sees it, and they can select the best option from here, and then they'll see what the therapist says.
You're worried you failed.
And then they get feedback that I have built in to show why this one was more appropriate than the other one. And then the video continues.
I mean, I have good grades.
A little bit more.
I don't know. I'm worried.
And again, they have a question pop up. They choose the most appropriate, because we want to stress there's not a correct response, of course, but the most appropriate.
You're scared of not doing well enough. Yeah, I am.
And again, they get that feedback. So it really helps to kind of scaffold learning. And I often use this assignment or similar ones to help them practice these skills before I have a higher stakes assignment where they have to then demonstrate them independently. Kaltura also allows students to record themselves directly into Canvas, which does make it ideal for them practicing skills like, explaining safety plans or motivational interviewing, preparing for family meetings, presenting mock cases. And so in this example here that I'll play, students first watch a client video of, their presenting problem, why they're presenting for services, and then they use Kaltura personal capture to practice active listening and practice responding to that client. And so this creates a simulated role play experience where they can build confidence, strengthen clinical reasoning, and prepare for real world interactions. So I'll play a little bit of this now. So here's their client that they'll see.
Well, like I said, my name is Barbara, and I'm 50 years old, and I don't know why I'm here, really. My doctor wanted me to come to talk to somebody. He's been wanting me to do that for a long time, asking me if I'm sad or feeling depressed, and I'm like, I don't even know what that means, really. I'm tired.
And so they watch the whole video, and then they come down here and they can record directly into the platform, which makes it very nice. Kaltura personal capture, links to the camera with audio. They can start recording. So you can see that, what they record, and I'll just skip ahead a little bit. There we go. And then when they're ready, they hit finish, they can start over, they can watch it again, but then it's a really quick submission and it submits right away. So it's a really easy built-in system where they don't have to jump from page to page or save things on their computer to upload to an assignment. And then recordings can then be submitted for instructor feedback or peer review. And on our end, it looks, let me go back one. It looks like this. So just as it would for any other assignment, and here at FSU we use Canvas, but I think it would be similar for other learning management systems. But you would be able to view it right in SpeedGrader, play it right there. We don't need to download anything, and we put in our comments just as we normally would. The last feature I want to show of Kaltura is hotspots. And hotspots are a really underused feature in Kaltura. They let you place clickable icons or links inside a video to highlight key visuals or connect to external resources. So in the example you're seeing on the screen, I used a therapy office setup with hotspots to have students think about safety and boundary considerations like seating, exit positioning, and confidentiality risks. And so as the video goes, little hotspots pop up that they click on, and it links directly to, the materials that I want them to read. Hotspots could also really enhance supervision videos, home visit walkthroughs, or virtual tours of community settings. And students often note that this feature helps them really stay focused since all the resources are built directly into the video. So here are just some ideas for preparing child welfare professionals using Kaltura. Micro lectures could focus on safety assessments, trauma-informed care, and permanency. You could use those quizzes to give students practice with risk assessments and decision-making. That personal media capture could let them record responses to home visits, parent interviews, or court prep. Hotspots could be used to identify safety risks in the home or office setting. So there's so many different possibilities. These are just a few examples. And so wrapping up Kaltura, some considerations. It is especially strong for asynchronous learning, and it does connect really easily with Canvas or other learning management systems. It has accessibility features like it'll auto caption and produce transcripts, which I believe they say with at least 75% accuracy. But it also gives instructors engagement analytics to monitor student progress. Now, its interactive features do work best with shorter videos, so those quizzes and hotspots. They work best for 20 minutes or less. Larger uploads can take extra time to process, and sometimes those interactive features don't always work the way intended if it's a longer video. There is also a bit of a learning curve for tools like hotspots or branching, which we didn't look at for here because you'll see a branching in a different activity. And it doesn't provide any peer interaction directly within Kaltura. We have to use other apps or platforms to add a peer interaction layer. But FSU offers support through Kaltura Knowledge Center and help articles, making it a lot easier for us to get started. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is one of my favorites. It's Annoto, and this is an interactive video collaboration platform that builds on to Kaltura or other video hosting systems, and it integrates very well into Canvas or other LMS. So while Kaltura may handle that video creation, Annoto adds that social layer. So it transforms videos into interactive spaces. Students can leave timestamp comments, they can join discussions, and they can take personal notes directly in the videos. Instructors can embed prompts, polls, and quiz questions and provide feedback at specific moments. Again, really turning from passive viewing into active engagement, helping students connect with the content, their peers, and instructors in real time. So one of Annoto's most valuable features is personal timestamp notes. So these private notes promote reflection and active engagement. So for example, if a student is watching a video lecture that I recorded through Kaltura and I've enabled Annoto, then they have this black column right here to take their personal notes. And then they can write whatever they'd like. They can download those notes for later. Only they can see those. So I'll just play a little bit of a lecture so you can see mainly the note feature.
And clients in particular, or anyone when they're in a stressful situation, have this mental filter where they
some of my lectures so you can see. So if they go down to the bottom, you can see them typing in those notes right there. They can type in anything they'd like. It populates toward the top.
And they then only focus on the weaknesses. Active methods are overlooked or and build up on them.
And they can continue to take notes down here. They can also edit their notes if they click on the three dots. Yep, they can edit it. They can add things if they've thought about other notes they like to take. But then when they're done, they can download those notes in either Excel or Word document. And if you download them in Word document, it'll look just like what's popping up on the screen. Produces a Word document. It tells them which video it is. It links the video, and it gives them the exact time of where their notes are. So students, I just enable this note feature on any video that I have in my course. And students have really shared that it's just helpful. They don't have to have a different tab open. They don't have to be jotting down notes handwritten. It's really helpful just to have it side by side. Another key feature is time-stamped video discussion. So Kaltura, you can do those quizzes where students answer questions or put in reflective prompts. This is similar, but the addition is they can actually engage in discussion with their peers using the chat features on Annoto. So we can have those timestamp quizzes, but also that discussion piece. So whether it's a lecture, a case scenario, a therapy session, whatever video you're showing, they can pause and leave written or video comments tied to that exact moment. So in my practice class, I have an assignment where I play different video clips of therapy scenes from films or TV shows, and students are prompted to identify the ethical concerns that they see from that therapist and then discuss what the therapist could have done differently. They then reply to peers. And what's really great is Annoto will send them notifications. They can turn those off, but Annoto can send notifications when a peer or instructor has responded to their comments. So it really helps to foster ongoing dialogue. And it's a great way to see students just really engage, applying the concepts and really learning from each other. So I'll just play a little bit of this so you can see that as well.
That's great. That's great. You see how therapy works? I mean, it's like a Swiss clock. That's fabulous. You don't need therapy anymore. We're finished. Just get your.
And so then a question pops up that prompts them to go to the chat, and then they can type in their responses. Their responses are going to be much better than what you're seeing on mine. I'm just modeling what it looks like. But most students really leave in-depth comments. They put it up there, and then the video can play again.
All right, so just to go over a
in my
few
case,
things.
I have a video where after they answer, I provide them then with some feedback on what was wrong with this scene, and then we take it to a different video.
It was very facial expressions.
Questions about your disappearance?
Where they answer another
Can
question.
work. I make 43.
There we go. So this one, they're focusing on how did the therapist maybe mess up the confidentiality statement. They write it in there, post it, and then here we go. They can scroll through and see their peers.
So
and
I've
removed the student, so you can only see my comments, but you would be able to see all of the students. They can like the responses, they can reply. And so it really kind of mimics a social media platform, which helps with engagement. All right. So like I mentioned, like Kaltura, Annoto also allows for those quizzes to be embedded directly into videos. And Annoto works well with longer than 20-minute videos. So typically I'll use this if I do have a lengthier video than Kaltura. So in this example, you're about to see when students are learning how to assess for suicide using the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, I have a video where I use that assessment with a client who is a wonderful colleague who is serving in this role in this video. But they are then prompted throughout to answer different questions about what the therapist did or how the client responded. And then after selecting an answer, the video continues with the actual response and provides feedback explaining why each option was or wasn't appropriate. And so it really reinforces clinical reasoning and ethical decision-making in real time. And students often share that these interactive quizzes really help strengthen assessment skills needed for practice. So I'll just play a little bit of this now.
That I love, like that would be awesome. I just don't have to deal with anything I'm dealing with. So that kind of stuff.
And so the video pops up, and in this case, it's asking, what level of suicidal ideation did this client describe? Student selects, it gives feedback, and then the assessment.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, it's when things get really heavy, and you mentioned that real feeling of loneliness, part of you feels like you just weren't around and you wouldn't have to deal with this anymore?
Yeah, that's about right.
This question is asking, what active listening skill did I use? So we're really using their observational skills here to be able to really synthesize the content and make sense of it. Again, before maybe they have a higher stakes assignment where they need to actually demonstrate these skills on their own. All right, the last Annoto feature I'm going to show, and it's one of the newer ones, or at least newer to me, so I'm still exploring it, but Annoto has an option for students to leave video comments in response to prompts. So in this activity you're about to see, my students watch a client and they're presenting problem. Again, the clients are played by my wonderful colleagues, but they share their presenting problem. And then right in the video, the student is prompted to record themselves responding to that client using a specific active listening skill. Their video then uploads directly into the assignment where I can review it and provide feedback. And if enabled, peers can also view and respond, which creates opportunities for that interactive skill practice and peer learning. So I'll play a little bit of that now too.
Pushes me back 2 steps.
So here's
it's frustrating because I've been working really hard on myself.
And then they're prompted, this pops up right on the screen. They're prompted to paraphrase. They click the little video icon and they can record right here. And then they can see it, they can edit, they can post it. Once it posts, they go over to the chat and then they can see it there as well. It does take just a couple minutes to upload, but
Erica, this sounds really stressful and like.
So they can see it, they can change it. Again, I'm able to see it, and peers can see it as well. So it kind of mimics more of a live time interaction. Another helpful feature of Annoto is its centralized dashboard in the learning management system. So as instructors, we're able to see which videos students have engaged with, how many comments they've made, and whether assignments were completed. So it provides a really clear snapshot of engagement. And then we can also review individual comments and responses to assess critical thinking, link engagement and learning outcomes, and identify students who may need additional support. So just a few ideas for child welfare specifically. You know, students could leave timestamp comments on mock home visits or interviews. They could respond to reflection prompts around ethics or trauma. They could complete polls or quizzes on placement and safety decisions. They could also record video responses or reply to peers to model team collaboration. And they can view instructor commentary that highlights best practices. So you could really use Annoto to create like a supervision style learning environment, all built into the platform itself. So to summarize, Annoto offers that centralized hub for tracking and engagement. It fosters student interaction and it supports that private note-taking. It works well with both short and longer videos. However, grading does have to be done manually, so it doesn't sync directly to at least Canvas gradebook. So you do have to go into that Annoto hub and kind of enter in the grades on the gradebook. There is also a small learning curve, and it does require setup in both Canvas and the Annoto hub. And sometimes when students are using it on a mobile device, it can be less reliable. But again, for support, FSU has really great help guides as well as Annoto help articles. And you will get, for all participants that signed up, you'll get an email with these resources for all the different help links and tools. Okay, the next one is Padlet. And so Padlet is a collaborative digital bulletin board that makes learning visual and interactive. It integrates seamlessly with Canvas for both synchronous and asynchronous use, and it allows you to combine videos, articles, images, and documents on one shared bulletin board, essentially. It's really ideal for discussions, reflections, and showcasing student work. Students can collaborate, give feedback, and export completed bulletin boards for grading or for sharing. They have a lot of ready to use already made templates, but then you could also just start fresh if you're not finding a template that you like. So to highlight some, one way I've used Padlet is in my cognitive behavioral course. And toward the end of the semester, students complete a research paper on using CBT with a specific population, but then they also record a 15-minute video presentation. And they upload both of these into Padlet rather than submitting them to just a Canvas assignment. So they upload them to Padlet so that way their peers can watch the ones that they're interested in, ask questions, leave feedback, and they can see, the full video recording. And they can really learn from each other's work. And students have really expressed that Padlet makes it easier for them to access presentations all in one place instead of like uploading something to a traditional discussion board where you have to kind of weed through to find what you're looking for, or even uploading them to a module, which takes more time on us as the instructors to make these materials available for students. It also, Padlet does look more like a social media platform, which today's learners really tend to find more engaging. And so this is just a screenshot of their different presentations. But if they were to click on one, it would open up the video. They could play it right there in the platform. They could download the Padlet. And then it wasn't required, but some students did upload their full research paper. So that way students had it as well. And then students can leave comments, which you can see some below. This example, and all the marked out are for student confidentiality. But this example shows how Padlet could be used for clinical skill development. So in this one, students record themselves directly into Padlet explaining a treatment rationale, and then they upload that video to the shared board. So both then my feedback as the instructor and peer feedback were added directly on Padlet, which boosted engagement and helped students refine their skills through multiple perspectives. And if you just look at this top video here, I'll just show you what it would look like if you did click on one of these, on one of their videos, which this is my video that I did. So if you click on it, it opens up directly on the website, so you don't have to download anything.
Yes, I'm happy to explain.
It plays right there. You could also, if you have your features set up, download a video. You could leave a comment right here, or you could go back to the main page and leave a comment. And as far as uploading videos, it's very simple. If you look at this bottom video, you can again record directly into the platform. You can also add little filters if you wanted to, but you can record directly into the platform. There's options to trim and edit the video, and then it's just a very quick upload. You can add a description, and then you hit publish, and it is right there for everyone to see. All right, this Padlet board, this is one of my favorite uses of Padlet. I use Padlet in my seminar course, which goes alongside students' field placements. And so during their internships, they acquire a lot of different resources from their agency or ones that they use with clients. And so I created a bulletin board where it's divided by each of their names. And it's basically where they share open source or student created tools that they've acquired throughout the internship. So it could be worksheets, podcasts, clinical handouts, whatever it is, but they post it on their Padlet under their name with a short explanation of how each resource is connected to practice. And in seminar, I really see this board become a collaborative library that students could draw from throughout their internships. And in class, when we're staffing cases, oftentimes someone will recommend a resource or a tool, and they'll often say, oh, I'll upload it to the Padlet so everyone can have access to it. And then at the end of the semester, they can download the full collection, they can save the Padlet, but then they have all of these resources to continue in their practice. And just so you can see a little bit more, this video is just showing, if I click on one of the resources that's uploaded, again, it takes me directly to that full resource where I can either access it just directly through the Padlet, I could print it, or I could download it as a PDF. But it's really simple to access it I can then go back to the Padlet, I can click on something else. This takes me to the website that was posted. So the students have these just ready to go and really makes it easier to implement all the skills that they've learned about in practice because they collaboratively have had this resource drive. Let's see, a couple others for Padlet. So this Padlet was used in a live in-class activity for my CBT class on cognitive distortions. So students work together to post real-life examples of each distortion type. And in class, it created a visual and collaborative way to reinforce CBT concepts while encouraging critical thinking and peer learning. And then in the last Padlet activity, this is one for my asynchronous class. And first, students are shown an image, and then they're asked to go to this Padlet board and post their first impression of that image on a digital sticky note that you're seeing here. And so each student adds their immediate thought on what's happening in the image. And once everyone has shared, the board displays this wide range of perspectives side by side. And it helps to spark discussion and thought about how the same image can be interpreted in different ways, which for the CBT course is highlighting cognitive flexibility and core beliefs and perspective taking. But the use of these sticky notes is just a really cool feature that helps to engage those students. And so some ideas for child welfare specific, Padlet could be especially useful. We could build a case analysis board to look at risks and ethics. We could create a resource hub for practice tools or links for laws or decision guides that support investigations. It could also be a flexible space for ethical dilemma discussion, field reflections. It could do some family mapping, or it could even critique safety plans or policies like the Indian Child Welfare Act or the Adoption and Safe Families Act. So there could be a lot of different features with Padlet. So it's easy to use, it's visually engaging, it works well for both real-time and asynchronous activities. It has that social media feel, which feels familiar to learners, and it really supports collaboration. However, grading is manual, so it doesn't link directly to gradebooks on learning management systems. Boards can get cluttered in large classes, and you want to make sure privacy settings are set that only students in your class can access these boards. The free version is limited. However, I know for FSU, we have full access along with guides and resources, and other institutions likely do also have the paid version as well. Okay, the next one we're going to briefly look at is Google Workspace for Education, which includes, the basics, the docs, slides, forms, and sheets, but it also includes more advanced features using AI like Notebook LM and Gemini, which I actually am just learning about over the past few days. So I haven't used Notebook LM or Gemini yet. I've mainly used the Workspace tools. But Docs works well for templates, group writing, and peer reviews. Slides supports presentations, case mapping, and interactive lectures. Forms can collect surveys or reflections, while Sheets helps track goals and data. And so there's real-time collaboration, version history, and commenting across devices. And so in this video, just two examples here of in-class activities. The first is through Google Docs, which you're seeing right now, where in class, students break up into groups and they read a case of a client, and then they work together to create their case conceptualization, filling out these charts together. So they pull out their devices in class, they open up the Google Drive, and each group has a different chart that they complete their conceptualization. In this clip, similar, I divide students into groups and they work on creating a fear hierarchy when we're learning about exposure-based interventions. So each group has a specific fear and they collaboratively work together to input the different, the different exposure exercises that they would do with their client for this particular phobia. And so for both of these, what was great is I could follow their work in real time. So I had the Google Doc up and I could see what they were entering. And during those discussions, if I saw something was off or students were struggling, I was able to go directly to them. Also, then other students could see all the different conceptualizations in our post discussion. So it's just a really great collaborative tool. Ideas for child welfare, it could be applied. Docs would really work well for mock documentation, like safety planning or assessments. We could use supervision style commenting for ethical decision making. Sheets could organize community resources, build task lists, or compare indicators like reunification timelines. Forms, which we didn't look at, but it's essentially a survey or a quiz. So they could be for quick knowledge checks or field reflection, self-care surveys. And then slides are great for case walkthroughs, policy presentations, and even visualizing family systems. So Google Workspace offers those strong collaborative feels. It's real-time editing, there's auto saving, it's smooth integration into Canvas, and it works pretty reliably across devices. If you're with FSU, we now have access to Google Workspace for Education, which makes it a lot easier to adopt, and we get all of the different features. There are some limitations though. There are sometimes occasional lags if there's too many users. And there's limited customization for formatting and design. I believe we have 3 more to look at. And so Mentimeter is an interactive presentation tool that engages students in real time. So it integrates pretty seamlessly into lectures, workshops, and trainings by embedding live input directly into slides. They have polls, quizzes, word cloud, different features where instructors can instantly check understanding and visualize group responses. So to highlight one that you're seeing up here, I recently used this Mentimeter in a live workshop I did with 80 students. And so we began with a word cloud activity, just to explore curiosity and the stance of not knowing and the importance of open-ended questions. And then later, I put vague prompts that we might hear from clients up on the board, and students scanned the QR code, pulled it up on their phone, and entered in, their interpretation of those statements, really to illustrate how assumptions shape first impressions, or if we don't ask questions, we could really misinterpret things from clients. And then later, we practiced some active listening skills with this. So it was a really great way to engage 80 students. You can see the numbers, 70 to 75 students, 60 students are responding. So it was a really great way to engage that large of a class. I've also used Mentimeter for check-ins before for some of my classes. So this is an example from my seminar course where, students shared the biggest lesson from their field placement that week. Responses came in anonymously and they displayed in real time, which really encouraged reflection, normalizing challenges, and fostering discussions. And then the last way that I often use Mentimeter is for a virtual parking lot or Q&A. So again, during this weekend workshop, or even sometimes in my smaller classes, I'll have this up here with the QR code where students can send in a question. I often use it if I'm getting a lot of questions and I'm trying to balance between making sure all the content is there and answering questions. I'll often say, put it up on the parking lot, and if I have time, I'll answer it, or I'll follow up, next week or in an announcement. And so it lets participants, ask their questions in live time without interrupting the session. Other students could also like it or kind of upvote it. So that way I know it's a really important question that needs to be asked. I can mark it as answered. And so it really helps to keep the course smooth while giving students a space to engage. So for child welfare education, it could be really helpful for complex or sensitive materials. We could poll student understanding of mandated reporting, or see how they interpret key terms like neglect or family. It gives us a way to check comfort levels with emotionally challenging topics. We could present ethical dilemmas for live discussion, collect immediate reactions to simulations, reinforce important policies through quizzes. So it can just help to really engage students, especially those that are maybe a little bit less actively participating. Just some things to consider. So the free version is limited. I think it's up to 50 participants can use it per month. And it doesn't integrate directly into Canvas. And it also does require reliable internet connection. But if it can be used, that engagement that it produces in the class is really powerful. All right, quickly looking at Perusall. Perusall is a collaborative reading and annotation tool that turns assigned readings into interactive discussions. So within the reading, students can comment, ask questions, and reply to peers directly in the text, promoting deeper engagement. So instructors can add guiding prompts, track participation, and use analytics to see how students are interacting. And it works with any open source article, chapter, case study, even videos, any of your created materials, which really makes it a versatile way to build accountability. Often, and this is just an example of what it looks like, where students can highlight, they can add comments on the side, you can reply to comments. Often, I'll really use these for my in-person classes to encourage accountability of the reading. So I'll upload the readings into Perusall, and then they know that before class, they need to provide a certain number of annotations on this. And so it helps with accountability of readings, which is often difficult. I also just use it in my online classes just to really help engage and have that peer connection, since they can respond to those peers and their comments. I could also add comments if they have questions on there. They can also add little like emojis and different reactions, again, mimicking more of the communication style that a lot of our learners today are used to. The other way that I've used Perusall is I'll upload materials in here, and then I almost use it as a glossary of sorts. So it allows instructors to guide student thinking directly within the text. So in this video, I uploaded a case of a client, and I added annotations either pointing out situational factors that are relevant to clinical assessment, or I also highlighted, think terms that they may not know yet. And then in the comments, I have a definition. So you can see I have passive SI highlighted. And then if you click on it, it'll show one, what SI means, suicidal ideation, but then also what passive SI means. So I really use it as a way to help students learn some of the clinical terminology while also guiding their reading and helping them look for critically important material or critically important pieces in cases. So, Perusall could be helpful for child welfare. Students might annotate laws or policies to better understand the mandates. They could engage with lived experience narratives to reflect on trauma or resilience or biases. They could critique documentation samples or analyze interdisciplinary articles. They could use threaded comments to simulate case review discussions. So there's a lot of different ways that Perusall could be used to really help just foster those critical thinking and collaboration skills. Perusall doesn't link directly to Canvas or LMS. I know if you're with FSU, we do have Hypothesis, which I'm learning about. It's very similar to Perusall, and it embeds directly into Canvas and to the gradebook. There is a bit of a learning curve for Perusall, and you just want to be mindful of accessibility as well, making sure that any learners with unique needs know how to, that we have it set up so it's accessible for screen readers or other accessibility requirements. And I know we're getting down to time, but we are on our last platform here, which is a really fun one, Articulate 360. So this is a suite of tools for creating interactive, self-paced learning experiences. So Rise 360 makes it easy to build interactive lessons with videos, with flashcards, with quizzes, and then Storyline is a little bit more advanced, but it can create branching scenarios, drag and drop activities, really different interactive activities that make the learning feel much more immersive. So up on the screen here, you'll see a self-paced class that I developed through Rise 360, again on CBT. But students progress at their own time through this structured interactive lesson. It has different videos, it's got prompts, it has different skill building activities. In this case, the focus is on the basics of CBT. So it gives some content, going over terms, but then it also has some interactive features, some different skill demonstrations. I'll skip down a little bit. It's got images. I embedded that Padlet I showed you right into this. It's got clickable links. It has some simple kind of scenario / branching activities that the students work through. It's got drag and drops. So the students can work through it to really help make the content really active, make it a little bit more exciting than the just static readings, and also a little bit different than recorded lectures. You can also have knowledge checks or matching in there. So it really turns learning into an active environment. It makes it very flexible and supports stronger retention. The next one to show I created through Storyline, and this is an interactive fix the progress note or fix the documentation activity. And so I used hotspots, and in this activity, students review a sample CBT session summary or a progress note, and then they click on all the issues that they note with the documentation. As they click on the issues, they get feedback for why it was an issue. And then the more appropriate way to document pulls up on the screen so they can see their new note. And so this helps kind of scaffold that learning so they're able to learn appropriate language for documentation before they have a larger assignment where they have to write up their own documentation. This branching scenario, and this, I'll say I did not create this one. FSU ODL helped me put it together with me providing the video, so they're a great support. But this is a branching scenario that simulates a counseling session where students make real-time decisions by selecting video-based response options. So any choice that they select leads to a different outcome, giving learners a chance to practice clinical judgment, communication, and ethical decision-making in a safe environment. And so I'll play a little bit of this so you can see what that looks like. And so you click.
So Leah, tell me what brings you in today.
I've been feeling really stressed out with.
And so you listen to what the client says, and then you go over to the different options to hear what they say before you make your selection.
See. So what have you been doing to manage your stress? I see. Yeah, I understand. Work can be tough. So
they go
that sounds challenging. Tell me more about those things.
And then they select the one that they like. Now, I'll give feedback that'll say, we don't say it's wrong, but I might give feedback that says this isn't the most appropriate answer. It skipped right to problem solving before we validated. And then they have a chance to go back and try again. But they also hear how the client would have responded if they went with that approach.
I don't really know. I'm not sure.
And then they can try again. They select an option, and then the interaction.
It's just that I feel overwhelmed.
And then they have more options.
Like I said earlier.
So students really appreciate this one and just how interactive it is in helping them recognize why certain responses as a client, like validation or empathy, are much more powerful than maybe sympathy or advice giving. The last one of Annoto that I want to show you is a feature I've been having a lot of fun with, which is looking for ways to gamify learning. And so gamifying learning can make complex materials more engaging and memorable. So for instance, in my CBT class, students play a go at your own pace Jeopardy game to review cognitive distortions. In child welfare, you could gamify learning through like a choose your own adventure, cases that show the impact of different decisions. You could maybe even do an escape room based challenge that's tied to laws or ethics. You've got matching games flashcards, trivia to reinforce, the different concepts or strategies that are needed. So I'll play a little bit of this, and yes, I even do include the Jeopardy music in here. Let's see.
This is Jeopardy!
So if students click on, their category, of course, it's not answering in question format. It's multiple choice, so it's a variation of Jeopardy, but they read the prompt, they answer the question, they get feedback, whether it's correct or incorrect, and they have to complete the entire board before they can move on to the next part of the lesson. So this has been really a fun and engaging way to help students really learn the content, but make it a little bit, a little bit more engaging and interactive. So thinking about child welfare, you could use interactive scroll-based modules to teach maybe the MDT process, investigations, abuse, neglect. Students could strengthen skills through step-by-step guides or tutorials on writing court reports or safety plans. You could do a virtual home visit with hotspots to assess risk and protective factors. You could have branching simulations to model ethical decision-making, while interview scenarios and case conference role plays could reinforce interprofessional collaboration. So Articulate is a really powerful learning tool. It supports multimedia, simulations, and knowledge checks. There is a subscription cost, and there is a much steeper learning curve than some of the other platforms. So there is a time requirement. Accessibility also requires intentional planning, and because it does link the built-in peer interactions, it works best when you pair it with other collaboration tools. So as we wrap up, I do have up here on the screen a few other tools that could support collaboration, engagement, and creative instruction. And you'll get this list in the post email, but there's a lot of different platforms to try. And a lot of it is really just trial and error to see what you like best, and maybe piloting it in some courses and leaning on the support of, whether it's Office of Digital Learning, the different support guides, or even peers and colleagues to help with it. I really believe innovative technology can transform learning. It not only boosts engagement, but it also deepens critical thinking and helps students build real-world skills. These platforms make learning more flexible, interactive, and student-centered, and they also strengthen digital fluency, encourage collaboration, and support peer learning. And then most importantly, they help students feel more confident and better prepared for the field. It is important, just a few key implementation lessons for instructors. When we do bring new technology into the classroom, first, confidence really matters. The more comfortable you are with a tool, the smoother the experience for the students. And that comfort comes with training, with practice, and support. And second, commitment is important. So technology really isn't plug and play and it just works automatically. It really does take planning and a willingness to experiment. So having that support, whether it's from TAs, IT, instructional designers, really makes a huge difference. Yes, the setup can take time, but I've really found that the payoff is worth it. Classes run more smoothly and the outcomes are stronger. We do also have to think about ethics, making sure that the tools we choose align with social work values and do protect privacy. And since we're teaching adults, the technology should feel flexible, relevant, and connected to practice. And then most importantly, the technology we use should always have a purpose. We don't just use technology just to use it. It really needs to serve the learning goals. And so you will get these sheets, but FSU offers a wide range of resources to support faculty, innovation, instructional design, and technology integration. And then outside of that, there are some open access tools that you'll get the links to, just that talk about global best practices, research and teaching support. And it expands our reach beyond campus and connects us to larger communities. So I know that was a lot of information. I do want to thank you for joining me today. I hope that this did spark ideas for how you can integrate technology into meaningful, ethical, and innovative ways in higher education particularly in child welfare and social work. And remember, this is just a starting point. There are countless tools and approaches available. And I'm always happy to help too. And so at this time, if we do have time, I would love to open it up to any questions. Just a few minutes. Are we okay for time questions?
All I was going to say is thank you, Jessica. For those who have a couple of extra minutes and want to stay on and ask questions, you're welcome to do so. But we do understand that if you need to jump off, all of the materials are going to be shared after the fact. We'll have the presentation was recorded. Jessica has a handout that we'll be sharing with everyone. And then we also have a post-webinar survey that I'm going to drop in the chat. If you could take a moment and fill that out for us, it's just a good way to gauge how this experience was for everyone and how we can make it better for the future. But yes, like I said, if those who have a few extra minutes and want to talk to Jessica, we're welcome to do that. If not, we appreciate you. We're happy you are here, and we hope that you join webinars in the future.
And Kim, I saw your question. We do have access to Padlet, Google Workspace, Annoto, Kaltura. But yes, and Perusall has a free version that doesn't have many limitations. Mentimeter and Articulate would be a cost that the university doesn't provide. Yeah, that's the only question I saw in the chat. But are there any other questions or comments that I'm happy to try and answer? Yes, Lisa. You are on mute.
Oh, I can't unmute. I thought I was permanently muted. So my question is about how easy it is for the material that you've created for the students. So part of my thinking is if we get this kind of incredibly high quality material put together, and then another instructor wants to use it, and I'm not asking that you turn all of your information over, but if someone uses that information that they didn't create and they don't know the behind the scene and things break, are we going to create a lot of problems if we copy the material from the real expert to someone who's kind of proficient? I don't even know if it's a good question, but you're a great instructor, so you probably can answer something and make me feel good about my bad question.
No, so just from personally, even in me transferring it from one course to the other, for Annoto, I've run into some hiccups just because for each course you have to go into the Annoto hub and enable it. All the other ones I have found to be pretty seamless in transferring because they do link really well to the gradebook. So, Kaltura copies over very well the interactions. Padlet, since it's outside of Canvas, the instructor would have to set up their own Padlet. So because it would kind of copy over from semester to semester. So we would want to remove student information or create a new one with that template. So there, I don't know if I'm answering your question. There's definitely a little bit of the work that would need to be done, but I don't think for the instructor side, it would be easy to create guides on this is how you can set this up, like use this template, but here's what you need to do to make sure in your course, your template is good for your students and not pulling my students. I think that could be easy. On the student side, the main issues that I run into with students are that the students don't always read the directions. And so they may be completing something incorrectly and not realizing it, like they may not be looking at the chat box on Annoto and they can't find out how to do it, but it's because they haven't read my instructions of how to access it. So they report it's a problem. They contact Canvas support, and then Canvas support nicely says, you just have to click this button, or I tell them that. So I haven't run into too many issues in like transferring for the student side of thing. But I do think for instructors, it might take a little bit more of maybe prep materials just to help them be able to utilize it. Did that
That's
answer
tremendously helpful. Thank you so much.
Any other questions I can answer? All right. Well, and please feel free to email me, especially once you get the materials, if you have any questions, or when you're playing around with it in your courses. I'm no expert at all, but I'm happy to kind of provide my knowledge or connect you to the people that I know who have been really helping me with this process. So thank you.